Good evening, everybody. This is another session of Free to Heal, and I'm Noreen McClendon, your facilitator, and we're happy to be here with you guys this evening. Someone mentioned a topic that I think is really will be a good topic to discuss to help those of us, and that is to deal with grief while incarcerated, and I want to even say grief from the time of that you lost being incarcerated, the what happens when somebody loses somebody and they have to deal with grief while they're incarcerated, and how that affects us as humans and as a community. Because okay, let me step back and say this. Many years ago, when I was doing hardcore gang intervention, and I realized very early on that there was a lot of death. And I noticed, I said, nobody's really dealing with the grief of losing people week in and week out, it's like, okay, we go, we pour out a little liquor, we do what we do, and we go and act like nothing ever happened. And these are close friends, oftentimes family members and stuff, and nobody's dealing with the grief. So I had 5 gang intervention specialists certified in grief recovery, and I got certified when they did. So the one thing that I want to start off by saying about grief is not just death. We can grieve a lot of things. We can grieve a change in our lives. So if you think about it, that it's not just again death. Grief, it is acceptable to grieve the loss of a career, the loss of a home, the loss of time with your loved ones, things that you had, the loss of innocence of other people. I mean, there are a lot of things to grieve, and it is especially difficult when people are incarcerated, and it affects not just the person incarcerated, but also the family members of the person that's incarcerated. And I wanted to ask Miss Tony if she can maybe come a little bit closer for me this time, just and like pull up what you said, what you was talking about first. Yeah, take the chair from Miss Cheryl. Come on.
Talk. What's up, Tony? What's up, Tony?
Miss Tony. That's
Tony.
The one who says she ain't crazy.
Hey, Tony, done it again.
Tony has done it again. Yes, that would be her.
What you know about that old school jam?
Okay, so
I just brought up currently going through grief, brought up the grief factor of when someone, in our family passed away, being responsible to go to the prisons, or sometimes call the prisons to notify the inmate that someone has passed away. How hard it is. Sometimes people are out of sight, out of mind, and then in the process of that grief, you realize there's somebody else that needs to be notified because they're not present. And, just trying to figure out how to bring them some comfort in that process, because first time I went through it, I was really young. And, it just kind of took me aback because I guess I had never gone through that, and it seemed so harsh. It was a lot, can that person, this particular person was a flight risk. So this person was not going to be granted the opportunity to come to the funeral. And, in their incarceration over the years, they actually missed 3 family funerals, including your husband, because of their flight risk status. And so just thinking about the trauma, the pain, having to deal with all of that, and just having to sum up the courage to do the business aspect of it. It's a lot.
Because there is a business aspect, which is something that I don't think most people even give a thought to. And I think it's what you said too, is the out of sight, out of mind. And so there's no concept that these people need to be included in the conversation a lot of times, unless it's a like immediate, meaning right, you know, the nuclear brother, sister, mother, father.
Not even then.
Yeah, really.
At one time, it was a wife.
Wow.
And it was, oh, snap.
Yeah.
Think about that person. I have been the person writing obituaries in the family. So got to think about, and I wrote an obituary that a wife didn't agree with, but she happened to be incarcerated. So it was like, it was tough.
Yeah.
You know, in that process. So even the immediate can be an out of sight, out of mind. I'm not talking about distant relatives. My family, as large as it is still relatively close. So I think even in that instance, it sometimes just for, you know, those milliseconds, like I said, you know, finding out my cousin was dead, it's like, okay, everybody converged on my grandmother's house, and there's tears, there's comfort, there's conversation, and then there's, oh wait, we need to notify his stepmom. And you know, gotta pick up the phone and gotta make a phone call to the prison, or you know, in the entrance when it was her husband. Gotta pick up the phone and gotta wait. Somebody gotta call my mom, you know. So
and again, these are the things that thank you. These are the things that they're the unintended consequences and why do I love you so much? See, that's why. It's that brain of yours. It's that brain. You be knowing what to say. It is. It's collateral damage. It's because it's the things that get destroyed around the thing itself.
Yeah.
And that is one of them. Like the having to even think about that, and then not having the ability at that point to go and put your arms around that person and hug them to deliver the news. Now you gotta trust that somebody else is going to deliver it, and there's no guarantee it's going to be in a compassionate way, you know. And so it's very difficult. Has anybody else, you know, who's done a lot of time experienced that in the prison? And what, talk to me about you guys' experiences.
I had an experience. I knew they were gonna let me out for.
Wait one second. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
I had an experience for. I tried to go to my grandmother's funeral. I knew they wasn't gonna let me go for it. They sit over here. They have the pastor come talk to you, get all the court dates and all that. And I'm telling them they're not gonna let me go. Just leave me alone. Let me deal with this myself. You know what I mean? But these people act that they on, oh, we might get this, we might get that. These judges, all these people set this stuff up, make it look good and say, oh well, you know what, Mr. Such and such, you are a flight risk. Or you know what, due to my opinion, this is this. And I'm telling them, I said they're not gonna let me go to my grandmother's funeral. And that's the thing though, why waste my time in the court time or anybody else's time if you guys can sit over here? You know what I mean? It's just, I know I have to sit here and suck this up and deal with this loss inside of here, but y'all want to come check on me every hour, do this, do that, give me phone calls on me. I just let me grieve. A lot of times they force it up on you to where it's deeper than what it is because they act like they care, they really don't care. Ones who cares are their family. You know what I mean? They care, but these people behind the bars, they act like they care, they really don't care. Like they just do it for the fame, the glory, it's a show there. You know what I mean?
And I think that would infuriate me. I think that would make me mad that
That's why a lot of people go to the hole.
Care.
Yeah. That's why a lot of people get mad. They spaz out because just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I will come to y'all. They force themselves upon y'all like, oh, they're at the door. Hey, I get that y'all, I'm good. You don't want to talk to a psychiatrist? Is a psychiatrist going to be my grandma back? No. Is your pastor going to be my grandma back? No. So why do I want to talk to them? I don't want to talk to nobody but my family, and that's limited. Now let me go back to myself. They want to come in, oh, we this, we that. No, you guys don't care. You guys, I don't feel the love because you guys are sitting here and tell me stuff. I said, leave me alone. If I tell my sister, my auntie, my mama,
they're gonna leave
you
me
alone, give me some time. They'll say, all right, you know what, Davion? If you feel like talking, come talk to us because we need you. Right. They don't need me. They don't need me. The other people come out there, you don't need me. You're just doing it because it's your job assignment. You know what I mean? Yeah. So a lot of times it don't make sense because we You be put in positions to where they make us spaz out because I just leave us alone. That's all they gotta do sometimes, you know?
And that's one of the things that I actually didn't like. And I'll say this, like, that always disturbed me, was the unnecessary psychological warfare of being in custody.
Right.
I could see they would do things that they just didn't have to do. It just wasn't necessary. Like,
You know what they blame it on?
what?
Protocol.
Yeah.
Procedure, protocol.
Yeah.
They had, yeah, you know?
And it's like, and so you got that in place for what exactly? And who was that really serving? Which is why I can understand why it would have felt disingenuous and like y'all don't really care. So why are you up in my face? Just like you say, just let me be.
I'll tell you. One question. I want one thing will pass. Somebody passed my friend a while back, right?
Mhm.
And the person didn't have a pastor. This pastor said, "Tell me something good about this person. Tell me something good. Tell me this. Tell me this. Tell me that." Right? So they made up all this stuff about this person. And the pastor got out there and said, "Oh, this person was this. This person was that. How in the hell do you know this person is this, this, and that? And you never met this person.
Right.
You never met this person, but they would have got information from you, from Roberta, from my mom, from everybody, and made it like this dude was a gentleman, a scholar. He was this, but how do you know these people wasn't lying?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's when I saw back then that everything is for money, everything is procedure, everything is proper. Everybody's wanting a job to do to be accounted for. Because at the end of the day, you never met this person that we met. And you're gonna come speak at this person's funeral and take up half the funeral saying how beautiful a person this was, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not nice.
It's not at all.
It's not, and people suffer. So I know, Di, you have raised your hand. Did you have an experience? And Cheryl?
Yes, I had experience with when Dion and Sean was both locked up and Shantae got murdered. But Dion, Sean, and all of them was locked up. Dion, Big Sean, and Sean. I was by myself. So I had to go visit each one of them why that was going on. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, that was the hardest thing for me to do, to sit there with them and talk to them when I couldn't even talk and they couldn't talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Because they locked up. I'm on the phone with them, you know, but can't nobody talk to me because they can't even look at me. We can't even look at each other. We just holding the phone. We don't even know what to say. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to say to them. So that experience happened. Then Dion's father passed away while he was incarcerated. And at that time, they had put him in a suicide place or whatever inside of this, where we were up in the place for like 2 years because they didn't want him around the other people. Yeah.
After his father passed?
Mm-hmm. And that was hard because remember I couldn't see him. It took me 15 years to even touch him. So that was a lot.
Yeah. You know, it's just hard for me to contemplate. And it's crazy because I do remember being on that sidewalk and somebody getting Shantae's on the phone.
He had a chance to speak at our funeral, though. He did have a chance to do that.
Yeah, that was hard. Yeah. Anyway, Miss Cheryl.
Just that when they'll watch so much, that they're starting to do that now. They'll put the people in jail on the thing and let them be at the service and stuff. But when my sister died, I was actually camp status, but I just wasn't in the camp. But they quickly put me back behind the fence, so I'd have to have an officer go. You got to pay for their tickets, pay for their staffing, and I did because they told me I'd only spend 15 minutes with my family before the service, and I'd have to be shackled. And I'm my mother and not getting to see me in shackled, right? But I worked in the chapel at Dublin, and the chaplain started doing this. Instead of calling and saying, Cheryl Ward, report to the chapel, they would have me just go and get the girl, right? Because everybody was afraid.
When they got that
The
call.
chaplain called you for anything, they
Mhm.
always thought it was somebody dead. And the girls, I would go and say, hey, the chaplain want to see you. And then they'd be like, sure, what's the matter? I said, I don't know, they just told me to come get you, but I already knew what he wanted, right? And stuff, but that's a sad, sad thing. And then the other thing that people rarely think about is what about the ones that commit suicide, the families that, right? So, like, Danny just killed himself on death row before when they was moved. And Danny had been telling me he killed himself dead.
You know, I remember there were right before the pandemic, there were a lot of suicide attempts at a minimum at CIW. And I remember I could walk in there and I could feel the pale in the air. I could feel the heaviness. That's when they had that Hughes was the warden. And she came in and she just made a mess. She made a mess of it. Just stopped all the programming and stuff for no reason. Nobody could move around. And it got to be very depressing for them. So there was a lot of that, and then getting that phone call, I can't even imagine. Getting that phone call that your loved one has passed, and then because you never can really trust, what the institutions tell you, because depending on what happens, they may or may not want you to know. So then you get them conflicting stories. And one thing I realized recently is a person who's a thinker, um, only the truth is going to satisfy that need to know. So, like, you could hear something and go, what? Why that don't make sense to me? Or that don't, and you keep asking questions until you can get that satisfaction in your soul that you got the information. And a lot of times, with the institutions, again, they're not going to say, like, I know one of the habits of CIW was they would, if a person tried to commit suicide, they would, or did commit suicide, they would often take them down and put them in an ambulance so that the death didn't happen at CIW, so that they would not have to record it as a suicide at CIW. So those little details. Another thing I learned about grief is that people in the midst of grief remember the strangest things. It's not that they're strange, or it'll be the smallest thing can become huge, and they will remember it during that time. So this, like, if you're telling me this is what happened, and then really that don't make sense with what somebody else said, and so it just raises a bunch of questions, and it makes the grief that much harder to process, because you're not getting the full information, you're not getting the proper information, and you're not being told the truth. And it's for whatever is protocol, policies, whatever the reason is, that the institutions do this, but you wind up in a situation where you are confused, it doesn't make sense, and I think it makes grieving a lot harder. It makes it a lot harder. And you know, we're blessed when our loved ones come home, right? And we get to share that life with them again, because it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. And you think about, and I think about your nephew being gone all of his adult life, right? All of the family members that have transitioned from then until now. People that he just, he doesn't get to participate in any of it, or say his last respects and all that kind of stuff. You don't get to do that. And then dealing with the prisons, if you're not the wife, right? You really don't have no whole bunch of rights. Like, you don't have no rights, and the best you can do is give them information and hope that they do something, like I said, that they're humane about what it is that they're doing. But grief is a real part of incarceration. And I want to go back to this too, how that is not just the death. So I want to ask this question. I want to pose this question. what, for those people who were incarcerated during the time that you were gone, what is the thing that you missed most? Go ahead.
Can I go?
Yep. Let me go ahead.
For me, because I'm family oriented, it was missing my family more than anything. Missing, and from when I went in at 19, so getting out at 49, and then seeing all of the new kids in the family and whatnot and so forth. Yeah, I really missed that. That's what really, I can say, drove me to straighten myself up, was so I can get back to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my main thing.
And you know
That's
what?
why I always say I'm spending.
And the thing of it is that people wouldn't think, in other words, that you would grieve having missed all of that. But that is it. There's a grief attached to that. That again, society just doesn't necessarily think of the fact that, yeah, no, I'm grieving what I missed. I'm grieving what I didn't have. I'm grieving maybe some people what they didn't get to do or whatever. But because again, it's not just death are not the only things that we grieve. That's why, like, even in when the stock market crash in 29, people jumped off bridges and stuff because they were grieving the loss of their lifestyle. I mean, it's a lot of things involved in grief, but for people who are incarcerated, there's so much that you miss, particularly for such a long period of time. You were gone 30 years, right? So that's a long time. That's a lot of stuff to miss out on, and that is, again, people they don't calculate that in what you go through as a person who's been incarcerated. There's no calculation they don't put that on the checklist of stuff to check on you about, because they just don't. Nobody's thinking about that, but it's as real as it can be. It is real and alive.
Lifetime.
It is.
I say it's a lifetime because I can stop and think how many friends and family members didn't make it to 30.
Mm-hmm.
I got a whole laundry list of people
Mm-hmm.
that I know that didn't make it to 30,
Mm-hmm.
let alone 30 years taken away from somebody's life. So it's a lifetime.
Yes, it is. Miss Shore, you raise your hand.
What I thought you were gonna say is what was our fear,
Mm-hmm.
but I might have said this before, but our fear, the females, because that's where I did time, was that our mothers wouldn't die. If our mothers died, who was gonna take care of kids? And then I thought about this during the years of incarceration, that they really should let you grieve your child's childhood, right? Because you come and you and just recently about Nicholas, I was looking at him in the plane and he was asleep, and I was saying that I remember when I was holding him because I knew I was going to prison, and I was rubbing his back. He was like 3.5, and I said, I remember this feel, so when I'm in prison I can just remember. But then I started thinking about, because I'm looking at him, I said, he's so big, 33, long arms and stuff. But I said, I never saw him sleep when he was 5, 6, 7, all that up until 20 something. I had never seen him sleep. He's sleeping next to me on the plane. And then I started feeling sadness for that because I missed out. I mean, you miss out on so much, and I think they should let you grieve their childhood.
Well, and there is a grief there, and that's what, like I say, being a grief recovery specialist, being certified in that was the one thing that I thought was interesting that I had never considered before I took that course, was that it's not just death, right? And that is something that you don't get back. You've said it too many times before, Cheryl. You can never, quote unquote, make up the time.
Birthdays, holidays.
You don't get to make that up. You don't get to redo all of that. And so the fact that there's a sadness there is not something that I would say people should try to avoid or try not to feel or try not to think about. No, feel it, acknowledge it so that you can move on from it, so you can heal from it. Because when you're trying to not think about it, it's still there and it never gets addressed. It remains a part of your being that it's like trying to act like you don't have a left hand when you got a right hand. It's still there. It's still there.
It's difficult because, like, you know how my family gets together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would call. I wouldn't want to answer the phone because he's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody would say something like, "Hey, Donnie, Dion called," and I'd be like, "Not yet," but he just called.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm better with that. Now I understand how that means. I know how it makes me feel, but I know how it makes them feel because they do want to hear from him too.
Mm-hmm.
So now I embrace it. I'm not sad when he called like, "Hey, Dion," when everybody gets a chance to speak to him. Now I'm happy because we all happy. Yes, now everybody's happy. He's happy, we happy. It's okay. But at first, I wouldn't even answer a phone call. On holidays, people, I wouldn't answer. I wouldn't answer. I wouldn't answer.
Because it was the grief you was feeling that he wasn't there, that he was missing.
Yes, and I wouldn't answer. But now I answer, and now I understood it, and because exactly what it was, what it is. He is not here. There's nothing else for me to say. He's not here, and that bothered me.
And I was gonna say maybe that was something you had to accept first.
Yeah, I'm saying it was bothering me. That's what I said. It was bothering me. I didn't really care about nobody else in the room.
You wasn't ready to take that call.
I wasn't ready. No, and I would never answer ever. But now I do. I answer all the time now.
Yeah, yeah. Any other comments in the room? Yeah, grief definitely will reveal. Yeah. 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 And grief does have a way of doing that. So, grief will definitely reveal what is going on or what's already there. It's one of the reasons why people talk about how families act crazy at a time, when death happens and stuff like that. Well, one of the reasons is it's how grief reveals itself. It reveals what's going on, and it's a time when people feel so many things all simultaneously, and the ability to process that becomes difficult, trying to process it all at one time. And there's often feelings that they don't know how to process, so it comes out as anger. And people focus on very other things that would otherwise be insignificant. Yeah. That was Darius. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. 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 Younger than you. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And that's something. So, and that is another thing is to think about is the rage, right? Because because listen, grief is going to show up somewhere. Let's be clear. Grief is a real live thing, and it is going to show up. It is going to play out somewhere. And as a result, like you say, yours played out in a rage that anything that you didn't think that they deserved to be in your company or whatever, but they were taking the brunt of something that really didn't have nothing to do with them. Nothing at all. Is one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of leaving people alone. When you're on the street, you don't know what somebody's going through. And I always say this, you might take that ass whooping for something that didn't have nothing to do with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to catch it. You're going to get the release of my rage and my pain and my disappointment and all of those things for anything. You just never know what a person is going through in that particular moment. So it's very important to, leave people alone, right? If you don't have to be mean, then don't. If you don't have to check somebody and get in the art, just don't, because that is not something that I would advise, just because we never know what people are going through. We don't know what that is, and it could be, and they can look fine. One of the things, Terrell, you talk about all the time is how people are out here doing drugs and stuff like that. And they look like they normal, but you don't really know whether they on something or not, and they looking okay, but they're not, because you thinking that they're fine, but actually they're on some stuff, and you wind up, again, catching a break with somebody that, for something that that has really absolutely nothing to do with you. But I think it's important that we learn how to effectively process grief. How do we do that? There are things that, for one, is feel what you feel. Don't try to ignore it. Don't try to act like it's not there.
And if you don't feel like being bothered, you don't want to talk, let it be known. Express that.
Mm-hmm.
Say just that, nothing else, because nothing else is wrong. You just don't want to talk, and you just don't want to be bothered.
And that is a totally, absolutely okay way to process that grief, because at some point you may want to talk about it. At some point you may want to, but right now that's not the case. And I say, feel what you feel, because stuffing it is only going to make it harm you instead of somebody else. And an implosion, you're almost guaranteeing yourself that, because eventually it's going to come out. It just is. So again, understanding that there can be a lot of things that we missed, or that we, it could be something as simple as my mother's German chocolate cake, and I haven't had it in 25 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are a myriad of things that you can grieve having lost or not had access to during the time of incarceration. So it's really important for people to realize what that is and be able to process it, accept it. Acceptance will come eventually, for whatever it is that you have to accept about the situation. And then also, I'll say this, and we talked about this last week, is forgive yourself for not being there, right? Forgive yourself for whatever part you think you played in, not whatever the situation is, right? Forgive yourself for that, because you're going to need to be able to do that in order to be able to heal, and in order to be able to accept that it is what it is, and to grieve it, because you got to wash it off. You got to wash it off. So those are the kinds of things that tools and things that you can use that will help you to grieve and understand that it is, there is the business of it that is a challenge, being a family member trying to help someone incarcerated process when a death happens. But then there's also the kind of unspoken stuff that we don't talk about, that we just don't even discuss, that is still there, that is still within the person that's incarcerated, as well as the people like Tony, who are the people who wound up being responsible for all of that, and having to make those rounds, and you having to go to those prisons, and Diane, and not be able to know what to say, and just have to sit in the silence. until you could figure out what to say.
Only thing I could utter out of my mouth was, I'm sorry that you're not here. That's all I can say. I said that to each and every last one, and that's all I can tell them. I'm just sorry that you're not here. Definitely.
The silence. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't call. If you were my cousin, we have an understanding, he's gonna get a letter. Because he speaks to the trauma of, like you said, being pulled out of his cell by the chaplain to come and get that phone call to go back to his cell, getting that letter, or even before I give, a visit, if I pop up and visit him, it's just a visit, but that call is, for whatever the protocol and processes are, it leaves a bad taste in their minds. So you gotta figure out what works for you, what works for your family, for your loved ones, and for us, it's a letter or it's an actual visit.
And you
leave it to, sorry, you're not leaving it to someone else.
And that's something that raises a thought too, Tony, is you gotta know the person that's incarcerated and think about what would be best, how they would best receive it. Because it may not be best to have the prison to call them and have them chaplain calling them down. That, like you say, with those women, they hated to hear that call coming from the chaplain. Go ahead, Cheryl.
But if it's the officer who already have a beef with the guy and they go at them rude like that, right? But they don't go with compassion. Some women have compassion and empathy. We had a chaplain like that, but what about their chaplain? What if he ain't there and they gotta tell the guy, hey, they get the family call, go tell them his dad died. You know? Say, hey man, your dad died. But what?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's harsh. And then, being gone and knowing that they weren't there, what does that feel like? What kind of additional burden does that put on the person that's incarcerated at that time? Particularly, usually that's the one thing that's close to most people is family. And if not being able to be there, because thinking about like, okay, well, so when my oldest sister, she passed away, and just me wanting to be there for my other sibling, during that time, and then, but being here, and even that, so it might give me a glimpse into what it feels like to not be able to be with your family when you want to be there to be that support. And again, even grieving being that person or being missing, and grieving being able to provide that to your family has to be a big thing. So I'm going to give everybody a chance to check out for me. I'm going to start with you, Doyle. Any final comments on the topic? Good night. How about you, Ben? All right, Di.
It's okay to grieve.
Yeah.
It's okay to grieve. That's all I can tell you. It's okay.
Yeah, it's much better on the other side.
Okay.
When you let it go. Roberta?
These past 3 weeks has been a lot for me.
Oh my.
From my mother to the forgiveness to now talking about grief and talking about my brother. So I don't really deal with all that. Like I deal with other people's shit. I don't. So yeah, this is.
So I owe you. Look, wait, look. Wait, look, I'm gonna say I owe you a cocktail or something, huh? I owe you. What you say? If I keep it up, you gonna have to whoop on me. I'm sorry, Pumpkin. I'm sorry. Can I give you a hug? Is that okay? She only want my ready to hug, y'all. I'm sorry. She not gonna come back, y'all, if we keep it up. Oh damn, I'm all up in her case. And look, the cold part is don't even know it. I ain't even listen. But you know what it says to me, in all honesty, these are things you gotta let go for yourself. That they're, yeah, it's unpacking, right?
I know
Yeah.
how she feels because
Yeah.
don't hug me.
Okay.
Don't hug.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Well, you see, I asked. You know I do the ask,
And I'm
right?
so happy because.
Yeah.
Because some people don't understand that, and when you push back, you know, I got an aunt, and she'd be like, "Okay, hon," and I'd be like, "Don't do it." Because I grew up with all men.
Yeah.
And I did not grow up in an environment where there were hugs, and it doesn't mean that my environment wasn't loving. It was very loving, but
that just wasn't a part of it.
It wasn't a part of it. So I get that part, but it is an unpacking process, Roberta. And this is, you should walk out of here feeling a little bit lighter. Maybe, you know, the pain has to subside by the time you get home, but it's the process of unpacking, because this is that quintessential thing where you haven't been to church in months and it's Easter and you walk into church and you swear that pastor
talking to you, been all up in your business.
Like,
he was at your house last night.
Right. Cause I've been there, you know, I had a situation with my pastor where I was mad at him, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to church. And when I went back, he was talking, and I swear he was doing this and doing that. And I was like, you know, and I'm looking back, and he keep looking at me, and I was like, ooh, this is ugly. But it was his sermon. His sermon had nothing
at all to do with you. It just it touched you.
Members, but it was where it hit me, and where
right.
that pain popped. And but after I processed that, I felt lighter. So I think it's just an unpacking process. Everybody got baggage. Everybody has baggage. But do you now check that baggage, and are you just going to be carrying the carry on out of here? You know
well, and one of the things, and I just have to say this too, and that is that expressing, actually to say what you think and feel will make you feel even better. Like, that's not your habit. It's not how you process necessarily. But the hardest thing is the very first time you say it verbally, whatever that is. I feel ashamed that whatever. I feel hurt that I missed whatever. I feel guilty for, like, the very first time opening your mouth and saying that is extremely hard. But it is literally right on the other side of that relief, that feeling 10 pounds lighter, has happened every time I've done it. Every time I've done it. So I'll say to you, and it doesn't have to be here at Free to Heal, even if it's a room alone and by yourself, verbalize it, say it, so you can heal from it. You got it. All them things that you throwing darts at me about for these past 3 weeks. Right. I want her to take the darts out my back, because you know she sit right there, right? So y'all probably don't even know all the darts and holes I got back here messing around with Roberta. But I'm just saying, it's important. Like, it's hard the very first time to actually say it. And like I write in my book about having to look in the mirror at myself and go, all the pain that you're in right now, Noreen, is your fault. Ooh. It wasn't that nice, but it was the truth. It was the truth, and I had to swallow that one, and it still made me do like this, scrunch up my shoulders like that, squeeze my butt cheeks, you know. But it was my fault because I participated, and I didn't have nobody to blame for that but me. Now, that didn't make what he did to me and the things that, you know, he subjected me to be right. But I had to acknowledge my own part. But that was the most painful thing. But then right behind that was a series of things that allowed me to heal from it. So I just encourage you, like I say, it don't have to be in a room like this with a room full of people. But you got to talk to yourself, if nothing else. You got to say it verbally, whatever it is that you feel and whatever that is, so that the next time or the time after that we talk about this, it don't hurt so bad. It don't hurt so bad. Those are tools, like steps that you could take on your own in your private time when you're ready. That way you don't have to keep hurting like this, because you've been home for a minute and it's still there. You know what I mean? Not that it shouldn't be. I'm just saying, but it is. You know, and if you want to feel that like 10 pounds lighter that Tony's talking about, those are some steps. But sure, any last thoughts for you?
Grief is real and grief hurts, and then you have to put yourself in a position to grieve and let go, right? Because if you hold on to it, and I tell everybody this, if Susan Burton had not made me come back to work, I would have been dead. My mother died in February, and that December I would have been dead from grieving myself to death. You have to get out and do something else. You can't sit in the house. That's all I did. I sit in front of the house until I got sleepy, go in, take my bath, go to bed, get up and leave out. Because I didn't want to be in the house where she had died. I didn't want to be in the house where I took care of her for the last 5 years. But I was there, and I cried myself to sleep when I did get in the bed. And that's what you can't. That's what I'm saying. I'm holding on to it because I miss her so much. But guess what? What can I do? And would she want me to like I said the day after her funeral, I said, God, please let somebody shoot me in the head so I can go hold her again. Right? And that's what. And we close to them, and I tell people, it don't stop, but it gets easier to miss them, right?
Yeah.
It gets easier. Some days you laugh, some days you break down crying, but you learn, and what you said, you learn to deal with it. You learn to deal with the grief. And we can grieve. I think I told Roberta one time, John Lofton, I was in the dining room crying, screaming, and my mother came in there and said, "What's the matter?" I said, "John said he ain't coming back." And my mother looked at me and walked out the room. And guess what? John Lofton was over there the next day. So look how I had been broke down.
Yeah.
Because I don't know no better because I'm a teenager, right?
Right.
I'm a teenager and think I'm in love. So, but you can't hold on, because I was holding on to that too.
But that is what grief recovery is about. It allows you to release the pain of it. And I can say one of the things that I allowed myself to do that I did that really that helped me was, particularly when it comes to death, is not focusing on what I don't have anymore. When I would focus on my biggest loss being my mother, whenever I would think about what she wasn't here for, what I wanted her for, like, when Clavon's gonna do this, or Clavon, he's getting married and my mom's not gonna be here and all that would make me cry. I would feel sad. But then when I thought about her, and I thought about all of what she had done in her lifetime, all of the sacrifices that she made for everybody, and I realized from her death certificate that she had been suffering with leukemia, all I thought about was how much pain she must have been in. And I thought, I would never want her to be in pain. So I'm grateful that she's not here suffering anymore. And so I learned from that experience, and I took away from it that as long as I'm focusing on me selfishly, what I don't have, what I can't do anymore, what I can't pick up the phone and call her anymore. As long as I'm focusing on that, I will grieve, I will hurt. But when I'm focusing on her, I can be at sometimes a little melancholy that she's not here, but other times I can be celebratory when I think about all the fun times that we had, the first cruise that she took me on, or when she was making my prom dress, and when she made my gold lame bathing suit for the Little Miss Black America pageant, and like when I think about that, I'm celebratory. But again, when I think about she's not here, like how I cried one day in the shopping center when we first opened, when there were like 4 senior citizen ladies sitting outside of Yogurt Land having yogurt. And I was so sad that she didn't get to see it. She didn't live to see it. Again, that's thinking about what I wanted her to have or whatever. So that was about me. It wasn't about her. So those are things that that's a tool that I learned to use that really, really helped me. And I'm going to give you a chance, George. Any last comments from you, sweetie? Got to unmute, babe.
I agree with you when you said about I caused it. I caused my own problems. I did. I was a failure in life. That all the time, and I knew it was wrong, but I still chose it. I
Mm-hmm.
became an alcoholic, a drug addict, and I chose it over doing good. And I know that. So I do feel the pain of missing the loved ones and all that. But then again, towards the end, when I started getting religion, I realized I was the one that put myself there. And when my mother died, when I was in, and my brother died, and another brother died, I felt hurt, but there was nothing I could do about it because I figured. And then to top it off, when my wife died, when my when my girlfriend died of 5.5 years, and that's what I got the murder for. I try to blame her all the time because she was it was a drug overdose, and they said I suffocated her. Anyways, regardless of how she died, I did take her life because I didn't stop her. I was a drug addict, and we kept on doing it. When she came out of the rehab, she died. I consider that murder. I consider it taking her life. So all the circumstances put together, it was like uplifting when I turned around and realized that I'm paying my debt back to society. But yet she lost her life, and her 3 kids will never see her again.
Mm-hmm.
She'll never go to their graduation. She'll never do nothing with her grandkids and her other kids. And I have to realize, to me, it kind of equals out. I got my freedom now, but still, she lost her life.
Yeah.
And you can't put a price on a life. And I
No.
lost 20 years, but you can't put a price on 20 years. Altogether, I have to turn around and thank God that I'm alive today to be able to give back to others that are around me. And it's to me, I want to be worthy of the gift that God gave me. So that's why I'm uplifting, and I'm thanking Him for all the blessings I have. I have to start over, and I have to start giving, and I have to start sharing, and I have to start loving, not to be hurting myself. That
Yeah.
that would be horrible. Why would God give me a life? He gave me this life, this opportunity where I could give back to show I'm a different person. I'm a different man. I'm nothing like I was before. I was selfish. I was guilty. I was horrible. But now I have the opportunity to show. And it's uplifting me that God trusts me to show others, to allow me, to give me life, to show others. Not like my sister says, hey, when I was in there and I said, yeah, I'm going to be changed. I believe in God. She goes, don't talk about it. Do it. Prove it when you
That's
get
it.
out.
Be about
Let
it. Yeah.
people see you. And it makes me feel so good to know I'm off, that God allows me to show that I'm a different man.
Yeah.
So all this grief and everything, I understand. We go through it. But I thank God that when I met good brothers in there that I could trust, I could turn to, it was like having family around me. And I left a lot of guys back in there that do believe in God and helped me through my steps to build my faith up. And there's no way I'd ever like to give that back. Until this day, they still call me and ask me and see what's going on and are happy and share with me. But I have to admit, I'm a different man, and I wanna. Well, I'm not gonna say prove myself. I want to show, and I want to give back to society and help others that are in
But
need.
what
Even if I have to turn around and give my testimony, that's what it's all about.
That's
Because
what I
I
was gonna
lived
say.
it.
You know, you're
I
you're
lived it.
very joyful, and and when you speak that, and people should be able to, anybody listening to you should be able to get something from that. But I will say that when you just expressed what you did, there were a lot of things that you expressed that people would feel guilty for and beat themselves up about, right? That you have clearly done some work, but you can say them now without holding your head.
Even if I get one, like you said, is one is safe. That's all I need. I
That's
go on from there. Thank God.
awesome. Thank you so much, and thanks for
Thank
sharing.
you.
I appreciate that. Mr. Darius, let me come to you. Any final
Okay.
thoughts?
Yeah, I want to add. So in 2023, as I was getting ready, because this was like early in the year, I was going to the board in October of 2023. Then I get, the phone call around August, saying that my grandmother passed away. And it wasn't a chaplain; it was my counselor. And I guess they figured out that me and my counselor we was real good with each other. So me and her sat down and talked about it. But it was kind of crazy because I was at work and I'm thinking I'm going to go sign some parole stuff, for board. And she when she put me in the little room, I already knew. And first thing I said was was it my little brother? And she was like, no, it was your grandmother. And I was like, okay. But, with that in my mind, I had, I couldn't grieve right then. I cried for a minute, but I had to realize what my grandmother wanted from me, and that was for me to get out of prison. And so that's why I poured everything from that day forward into getting out, and I ended up getting out. So
Yeah. It became motivation. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And James, I know you kind of came in a little bit late. Good to see you. You could unmute any
Good day though, productive day. Can you hear me?
comments in from anything you heard.
There was a couple. One of the things that you said, Noreen, about it being a relief. That's how I felt because a month after I got found suitable, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he was given 60 days to live. And I'm sure the process to get out is about a 5-month wait. So I was like, man, like I'm not gonna make it. But my dad, he hung in there. I got to see him 3 times, and the 3 times that I seen him, each time when I seen him, I barely recognized him. He was bad. A week later, I didn't recognize him from the week before. So on the third time, I don't say I wanted him to die, but it was like I wanted him to be at peace. It was like, we're like, I was happy we got to see each other. He got to say goodbye to his family because he was in pain. Like it was. So when he finally did pass early in the morning, I noticed that a lot of my family, it wasn't sorrow, it was more relief that he wasn't, because he was in pain. He was in physical pain. He was refusing medical treatment. He was refusing medication. He didn't want to be in a hospital. He just wanted to be in his living room. And so he just took it. So when he did pass, it was a relief, and it sucked, really. That's the only word I could come up with. That it really sucked, but it was a relief that, like, man, I didn't like seeing him going through that. It was horrible, and then when my parole conditions, I couldn't be there because it was beyond the 50-mile radius where I would get permission to go for the day and then have to come back. And this is in San Jacinto, so this is a long drive, So I mean, I'm not knocking the parole office. I was happy for that day pass, I mean, because they could have said no, because I hadn't built up any trust with the parole officer, so I was happy that I got to see him 3 times.
Yeah, yeah, and that was a blessing. So thank you for sharing that with us. And so I just want to say, thank you, Miss Tony. Tony has done it again. Nice topic for us to discuss. And this is Free to Heal. We come together every week trying to heal and be better from the things that mass incarceration has done to us, our community, and our loved ones. And so check us out on YouTube, X, Twitter, no, that's X, Facebook, Instagram, any of the social media sites. Leave us comments if there's topics you want us to talk about. Let us know, and tell a friend, because somebody may need to hear some of the things that we talk about. So we thank you, and we'll see you guys next week at Free to Heal. Guys.